JourneyTalks podcast, your favorite podcast to reconnect with gratitude and inspiration, hosted by Jorge Gonzalez. Hello and welcome to JourneyTalks podcast, your favorite podcast to reconnect with gratitude and inspiration. My name is Jorge Gonzalez and I am your host. I am convinced that behind every gratitude, there's a powerful story waiting to be told. And through this podcast, I want to create a space where we can share these stories and inspire one another. As humans, we all share one thing in common, and that is the experience of being alive. We're all together on this journey we call life, and we meet people, go through situations that somehow they leave a footprint in our lives. The question for me is, who are these people? What were the situations that open a door for transformation, right? And how that creates an impact in us that shapes us in the person that we are today. Some of these people hang in there for a little longer, others have a very short period of time. And regardless, I wonder, how is it that we can learn from these experiences and move on with our lives and make this world a better place? Through this podcast, I will be interviewing guests with stories of gratitude. But I'm talking about the gratitude that transforms our lives. And my hope is that our willingness to reconnect with these stories will help us celebrate our shared humanity and give us an opportunity to reconnect with the unconditional love we have access to from within. I'm so excited about today's guest. In my opinion, he is an example of commitment, humbleness, dedication, vision, and heart. In his career as a racing car driver, he won the British Formula 3 Championship in 1998, the third place in Masters Formula 3, and over the years he maintained a presence in the car driver scenes for over about 12 years or so. These days, he is focusing his energy on something very, very special, and that is the conservation of wildlife, especially the life of jaguars and man wolves in Brazil, in an area called the Pantanal. And he is doing this through his organization, the Onçafari Association. He's a father, he's a husband, he's a friend, but ultimately he is a human being living in an intentional relationship with our planet and its biome. It is my joy and honor to introduce you and to present to you Mario Haberfeld. Mario, how are you doing today?
Hi, Pastor Jorge. It's a pleasure to be here with you in one of your first episodes here. It's an honor to be your guest here, and I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Thank you so much. How are you doing today? How things are going lately for you all?
No, all good. Back in Brazil, we met in Miami. My kids used to study with you, and we moved to Brazil a couple years ago or so, and enjoying our home country. With all its difficulties, but it's nice to be back.
That's life, right? Holding the tension of all those dichotomies and trying to make meaning out of it and make the best out of it, huh?
Yeah. So, but I mean, it's nice to be back. In the end of the day, Brazil, for what I do, I think we're going to talk more about it, but it's the most biodiverse country in the world, and it's nice to be here and being able to enjoy this part of it.
This is great. Well, I said it earlier, but I'll repeat it again. This podcast is all about sharing stories of gratitude, but the gratitude that comes as a result of those moments of transformation in our lives that they just change us, right? I know you share a very particular perspective and view of the world in terms of your commitment to making this world a better place and honoring the beauty of nature and its biome. And I'll be so honored if you open up your heart and your mind once again to share those stories of gratitude and your journey with me and our audience. Are you down?
Yeah, for sure. It's again a pleasure to be with you guys.
Let's do it. So very quickly, tell me a little bit about your journey. You know, you started as a car driver in Formula, and what drawn you to that in the first place? Because you made a huge switch from being in a very exhilarating approach to life, and literally you're going super fast in a machine that it can actually take your life in a split of seconds, right? And all of a sudden you're transitioning into something more quiet, more poised, that needs intentional presence. So tell me a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, well, I have to say, I consider myself a very lucky person. Apart from family, professionally, I always had two passions in my life, which was car racing and conservation. And I'm very thankful that I was able to, still am able to work with both of these passions. So I started by being a race car driver. I raced for nearly 20 years, starting in Brazil, living 10 years in Europe, and then moving to the US to race in Indy cars. That's how we met, and I retired from racing in 2008, but decided to keep living in the US. I think it was a great experience for the kids, something that would be very hard to give them otherwise. The knowledge of the US, of speaking English, in Miami also Spanish. So now they are like trilingual, whatever you say, so they can speak all the languages. And when I retired from racing, I wanted to work with my other passion, which was conservation. I think that started back when I was 12 years old. My dad took me to Africa on safari. In those times, it wasn't a very usual thing to go to Africa on safari. It was things a lot simpler than they are today. So we just spent about 2 weeks in the back of a truck driving through the Serengeti National Park in Tanzania, and we would stop at night. Each one would put up their tent, only have a kind of a shower when we found a waterfall. So it was a great experience for a young kid. I spent my 12 years birthday inside the Ngorongoro crater, which is one of the wonders of this world. So I always had this passion for wildlife. When I stopped racing, I wanted to work with wildlife, with conservation. I had no idea how to do it. In the end of the day, I don't have any formal education as a biologist or as a vet or anything like that. So I decided to travel the world and see all the animals that I always wanted to see in nature. So I don't know, pretty much any animal you can imagine. I found a way to go see them, from, I don't know, polar bears in Canada or panda bears in China, to go to Antarctica, tigers in India, gorillas in Uganda, or you name it. I found a way of going and seeing those animals in their natural habitat. And from there, it's where the idea came to create Onçafari, which is this organization I founded back in 2011 and still run it today. What I found on most of those trips was that ecotourism is what was saving a lot of these animals, because through ecotourism, these animals start to have like an economic value. Unfortunately, I think there are a few crazy people like me that just love wildlife because because I do. And unfortunately, to these days, a lot of people still put money in the first place. So if we think about it, I mean, if jaguars go extinct, for most people, nothing is going to change. Now, if these jaguars can improve their lives, then people start to conserve. So we started in Pantanal. Pantanal is the smallest biome in Brazil, but it's the size of Belgium, Switzerland, and Austria put together. And it's the largest wetland in the world. So I'd say similar to the Everglades, but much bigger. And the idea was to make jaguars viewable by people, so you could go on safari like you go in Africa to see lions and leopards and see jaguars. It was a huge challenge. The Pantanal is about 95% privately owned, and in all this land you have cattle ranching. And obviously, when you put cattle and jaguars, sometimes the jaguars prey on the cattle, and farmers go and kill jaguars, despite being illegal to hunt in Brazil since 1967. But like I said, it's a huge area, impossible to police. So it was a matter of changing people's mindset, for them to understand that through the jaguars it can improve their lives, and that way they will start to protect this animal, and by protecting jaguars, which sit on the top of the food chain, you're protecting actually the whole biome. So in a nutshell, that's how it started.
Well, thank you. That is a powerful story on its own. That reminded me as you were unpacking the birth of Onçafari and your passion to be near nature and near these animals, that this is their home, right? We forget that as humans we share this earth with them, right? And
Yeah, exactly. I think humans are very greedy, or whatever the word is, that we think we own the world, right? Unfortunately, I think, in my opinion, unfortunately, we are very powerful, very smart, and we can actually own this world. But we have to think about the other beings that share the world with us, and it's not fair just to destroy everything for our own good and not care about everything else that was actually here much before us. So the whole idea of safari is showing that humans and animals can coexist peacefully, and actually be beneficial for one another.
yeah, your words are bringing me back to a very powerful memory that I have. For the listeners, so I am Puerto Rican. I was born in Puerto Rico. I lived there until I was 23 years old. But in my early 20s, prior to leaving Puerto Rico, I had the opportunity to go to the Amazons. And I'll never forget, Mario, when I was in the middle of the Orinoco River in Venezuela, and all of a sudden, Mario, I heard orangutans, right? And I heard them at a distance. And for the first time in my life, even though I was born and raised in the tropico, right, in the equator, which of course I was surrounded by animals and whatnot, but the depth of their sounds really brought me back to it introduced me to a different level of my humanity, if that makes sense. And so it was very powerful to be connected to nature, to understand that um, there's a very particular relationship that we have. I was actually very small in that space. I was not the all in all. As a human being, I'm intelligent, and perhaps I consider myself more intelligent than these animals in this setting. But the truth is, no, I depended on a balanced relationship. I was dependent on being humble and recognize that I'm sharing this space with them. It was really powerful, and I'm so glad that behind this Onçafari Association, you have this at the core of its value.
Yeah, I think, like you said, these kind of experiences in the Amazon or any wild place, it's very you makes you feel very humble, and I think it's a great experience for everyone to have, to go on holidays with the family, to be in nature. It's a way, going doing ecotourism and safaris and things like that is a way that everybody connects to each other, and enjoy nature. I think it's a much better experience than going to a big city that each one wants to do a different thing, and you end up not seeing seeing your family for the whole holiday. So being in nature, it's definitely for me the best thing. So even I'm in São Paulo today, a big city. Our office is here, not a fantastic place, but I try to spend a lot of my time in the wild, and normally with our projects we work during the day, but just by knowing that in the end of the day you can go out and see nature, and being immersed into nature, it makes everything worthwhile.
Thank you for sharing. Well, this podcast is all about stories of gratitude, and as you were introducing yourself, and you were unpacking the birth of this vision, you mentioned something really powerful, and that is the experience that your father gave you on your 12th birthday. And so, what a magical story, right? I'm sure you are grateful for that. But my question to you is precisely that. What are you most grateful for in your life?
I think again to have the opportunity to do what I love. You know, you see so many people that have to work in something they don't enjoy uh, just to make ends meet. And I think one of the things I'm most grateful for is that I was able to race cars, be successful in a career that uh, I really dreamed of being a race car driver when I was a kid. And once that was done, to be able to slow down in a way, like you mentioned in the beginning, and work with nature, which is my other passion. So obviously thankful for my family, for my father to having inspired me unknowingly, I guess, when I was 12 years old. And then today I can still enjoy what I do every day and actually make a difference to the world. I mean, I always say, you know, racing cars and being a race car driver, it's fun. It's a lot of adrenaline, glamorous to in a certain way. But it's quite of a selfish sport, right? You're there to win for yourself, for your team, maybe for your sponsors. So now I feel much better, much more grateful that what I'm doing it's not for me or I think it's for the next generations stimulating people to conserve the environment and teaching them about the environment, the animals, and so forth, in a way that people actually enjoy being in nature and protect what the most valuable thing we have, right? Because without nature, we wouldn't be here. So, yeah, I feel grateful that I can enjoy my life that way.
Wow. You said so many things, and that make me think of a couple of things. You mentioned that I used to work with your kids, and yeah, part of my job is to be one of the many voices that young people have in their lives as they go through their journey of life, right? And particularly in my case, it's from a spiritual perspective, but I've always been intrigued and understood over the years that there's something very special when you are able to find your calling, whatever moves you, and how do you use that in your knowledge, your experience, and your areas of growth in order to make this world a better place, in order to raise a greater sense of awareness and consciousness in people. And so it's fascinating because I hear in what you're saying the opportunity that you had to combine those two things. And it's interesting, right? Because many people might say, well, that's a privilege. And it may well be a privilege. But the question and for me is, what do we do with that, right? And you have been very fortunate to combine them in such a way that it creates more opportunities for people to hone in into this, to really preserve our nature and, like you say, right, provide for future generations. Let me ask you this, Mario. Can you think of someone, or can you remember a situation that you went through and looking back, you realize that you know yourself better because you went through this situation, and in what way the situation helped you expand your understanding of life?
Yeah, I think again, this trip that I did when I was 12 years old is, I believe, I always, as a kid, I wanted to be a veterinarian. I always liked animals. I ended up becoming a race car driver, which was great. But I think this trip to Africa when I was 12 really changed my life in more ways that I could imagine at the time. And since then, I've been going to Africa every year of my life. Nowadays, with work, I go more than once a year. And I think, again, people need to try to find, coming back a bit to what you said, what they like to do, right? I mean, in the end of the day, your professional life is not always easy, but if you do what you love, you have this willingness to struggle, right? And for the greater good, for the things you like. So I think this is how people, uh, become successful in life. You have to find what you like to do and then give it 100% to it. And I think it's important to say that Onçafari was established to, initially to save jaguars. Then we started doing it by developing ecotourism, but it's not only about jaguars or about nature, it's also about people. If we think about it, Onçafari works in very remote places of Brazil. Now we have 10 bases across Brazil. But the whole idea is giving people from those areas a better opportunity of life. So, for example, in Pantanal, just to say one case, we have one of our guides. He used to actually hunt jaguars when he was young with his father. It's illegal and so forth, but we know it happens. Then he grew up, he became a cowboy, and he used to make a very small salary being a cowboy. So on Safari started, we trained him, he became a guide. Now he earns, I don't know, 10 times more than what he used to earn as a cowboy. But more importantly, with ecotourism, you can create a lot of different jobs for men and women in an environment where cattle ranching, where only men had opportunities. So this guy nowadays, he works. His wife works as a cook in the lodge. His daughter works as a cleaning lady at the lodge. His son works in maintenance. So his whole house income went up by almost 40 times. So, and that's all thanks to jaguars. And if you nowadays you tell him you're gonna hunt a jaguar, you better run. Otherwise he'll hunt you. So, I think it's nice that what we try to achieve here is a balance between uh, man and wildlife, man and nature, and not just come in and just say, okay, let's just protect nature, and people have to find something else to do. The idea is to create a whole beneficial circle where everybody is involved.
I think we need to spend some time with that because that is really powerful what you just shared. Um, and I'm a part of me is going to this idea of what happens, our ability to grow in our mindset, right? And an understanding of our circumstances, right? Because in the example that you're sharing right now with that employer of yours, and this, because ultimately he's a human being, right? And he was in his own journey of making a better life for himself and for his family, right? But this person was dealing with, for lack of a better word, the cards that were given. Now this opportunity, it's shifting things around. It's creating a better sense of awareness for his environment. It's actually allowing this human being to be more connected to his own humanity, right? And and in that humanity, you are protecting and recognizing the sentient beings around you, and in this case, jaguars, and how powerful it is that at one point he was, for lack of a better word, desensitized from that. Now paying attention to and honoring that life, it's providing him an opportunity to better his circumstance, not only for himself, but for his family as well. And it's creating a ripple effect of growth. And that, to me, that's really fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is not my words, but I always say it. Uh, Conservation is about people, because if there wasn't people, then we didn't need to do conservation. So conservation, you need to improve people's life and all of that. Otherwise, it's understandable that they don't care. They just want to survive. Once you can improve everybody's life, then they also start to think about other important things like protecting nature and so forth. So I think ecotourism is very powerful in that way because it's good for the animals that they stop being hunted, they start being known, and people want to protect them. It's good for the environment because to protect certain animal, obviously you need to protect the areas where they live, and it's good for the people. So they get uh, better chances in life, better jobs, and better opportunities. And this is just if we're talking about the core business, let's say. But if you imagine areas where we work, which are quite far away, just for people to get there, there's a whole chain of improvements that are made from artisans to people that sell produce, drivers, airplanes, whatever. So it's a whole big chain, that benefits from it. So uh, I think from all these travels I've done, I noticed that like South Africa, the biggest income of the whole country is tourism. If you think about Uganda, which is a country that most people never even heard about, uh, the second most thing that brings more income to the country is ecotourism, and that's all through the gorillas. So people go there to see gorillas. So you see the impact that one animal can have in the whole economy of the country. So, like I said in the beginning here, Brazil is the most biodiverse country in the world. It has great temperatures year round. When I went to see the gorillas, sorry, the polar bears was freezing like you can't imagine. So I think Brazil has a huge potential. I would say Africa, South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, these countries are a lot more developed than us in terms of ecotourism. They started 50 years ago. It's something quite new here in Brazil, but I think Brazil is starting to realize its potential, and by realizing that, we try to change laws and influence governments to make things um, better in a way that this can persevere for a lot of years, and our children, grandchildren can benefit from it.
I hear you talking, and I am mesmerized by the fact that you have been able to use your tools, your knowledge, your expertise, your experiences to expand a better world, right? Um, you have been able to, through your relationships and through your network, really exponentially grow what Onçafari is, and you have so many different partnerships, right, with major companies like Nike, Land Rover, Bank of America, the North Face, and you've even worked with David Attenborough, which I think is fascinating, right? And so you're like a quiet giant, with the power to really bring people, the right people, into the room and to have really impactful conversations. What do you see the benefit of an opportunity like that has provided you with? What is your vision for Onçafari, and how do you see this gift that you have to nurture these relationships as an opportunity to make this world a better place?
Yeah, I think fortunately I would say we're at the right place at the right time. Maybe if we were starting this organization 30 years ago, people or companies wouldn't really care. I think finally people and companies are realizing the importance of nature, and then if we don't move quickly and change things the way things are going, we're not going to be here for much longer. So I think it's great to have the support of all those big companies and others that you mentioned. We were talking here before we started. This shirt here behind me is the Brazilian football, or in the US soccer team, national team jersey that they play in the World Cup. You can't really see from here, but they have jaguar prints all over the shirt. So if you think about it, 11 years ago when I started this, if we would have jaguar prints in the most well-known shirt in Brazil, I would never imagine. Maybe on this one you can see on the, how do you say it, on the sleeves, you can see them. So yeah, so, yeah, I think again we're in the right place, the right time, and trying to reach uh, the most amount of people possible. And I think again some of my experience that I had with motor racing, with brand exposure, marketing, and all of that helped me into help me now in this conservation world. So. But I have to say, I'm surprised, positively surprised by, this movement that is happening, that people are genuinely more engaged into saving nature. So this is something that wasn't like that 11 years ago when we started, and I think it's getting stronger as time goes by.
Mario, this is so fascinating. I am just so I have to be vulnerable with you. I recognize that I, didn't have certain opportunities growing up, right? And luckily, I've been able to meet people like you and others that have expanded my horizons, right? And I just have to go back to what we do with the gifts that we've been given and the tools that we develop over time in our lives. Um, how does Onçafari hones into that? What other things is Onçafari planning on doing in terms of the opportunities that they provide for anyone that is interested in ecotourism, and the opportunities that they have to come to you all, have their experience, the benefit that they provide. We unpack this a little bit in the local community, but to what level, how far you think this reach goes into people's lives?
Yeah, I think we started with ecotourism, which I think has this whole benefit for everybody involved. We also have a part that does scientific research, which in the end of the day it's something very a lot more technical. But we also have fronts in education, where we produce books, documentaries, and so forth, all with the environment in mind. We have a social part of on Safari where we work with the communities in these areas that we work, even with indigenous people. We have endowment funds to support these people. We work with local schools. We take kids, from unprivileged areas on safari, so they realize the beauty of the place they are. For them, it's normal seeing this animal or that animal. They don't realize how important that is. So we take these kids on safari like a normal guest, and they get this experience of seeing jaguars up close and so forth. We have a part which we call rewilding. So we developed a method, let's say, where we now can get jaguars that ended up in zoos and rewild them and release them back in nature. So we've been doing that for 8 years or so. And the newest part of On Safari, not so new anymore, since 2019, we called forest. So we look for land that's still pristine, but under some kind of threat and strategic. And then we raised fund to purchase that land and develop it sustainably with ecotourism, carbon credits, and things like that. But more importantly, we buy a piece of land and then try to engage with neighbors to operate under the same rules, let's say, sustainable rules, and create huge wildlife corridors. So I think one of these lands that we bought back in 2020 was you guys work in acres, so I don't know, it was like 75,000 acre land. We managed to, in the last 3 years, to engage with neighbors and people in the area, and now we created a 1 million hectare wildlife corridor, which may, if not the biggest, one of the largest wildlife private wildlife corridors in the world. So I think there's a lot of ways to engage and you know make this world a better place.
Mario, why? Why Mario Haberfeld feels so compelled and moved? What is it within you that touches the core of who you are and you feel compelled to act in this way?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I always liked animals, and I always thought back to the beginning of the conversation that wasn't fair for us human to destroy the lives of others, right? Others mean animals or forest or whatever. So um, I don't know. For me, it just makes a lot of sense, that we need to share and not to destroy, and just trying to show this feeling, this desire I have to save these wild places or save these animals with others, and hopefully I can persuade a few to to think the same way.
Mario, Journey Talks podcast. It's all about stories of gratitude, and I'm so grateful that you have committed your life to this. I'm grateful that life gave me the chance to meet you all and to be a part of your lives, and more importantly to get to know you better through your passion. And I hope that our listeners, if anybody's interested, if anybody's compelled to learn more about Onçafari, make sure you go online. Would you mind giving us a bit of how can people can find you and learn more about what you guys do?
Yeah, so we're in all different social media platforms. It's Onçafari, right? Oncafari, or the website is oncafari.org. Um, the name sounds strange in English, but onça actually means jaguar in Portuguese, and fari is safari. So on safari is like jaguar safari. Unfortunately, we didn't think that far when we created to be a good name in English as well. But anyway, that's how people can find us.
That's great. I always like to ask our guest, Mario, who who has been a mentor? What has been a quote that has inspired you over the years or at this precise point in your life? Can you think of a quote or a mentor that has been impactful for you?
Yeah, I think two things. I think someone who has been a mentor for me in wildlife, it's a good friend of mine called Roberto Clabin, that told me that in life you need to have a project, you need to have a goal. He told me that just as I retired from racing cars and I was starting to find life quite boring. And I think he's 100% right. For me, retiring wasn't a great experience because you retire and then what? What do you do? What's your, why do you wake up? Obviously, there's the kids, the wife, family, and so forth, but you need to have a bigger goal, let's say, in life of again, trying to make this world a better place. So he has mentored me through all my conservation life. And as a quote, there's a quote from Sir David Attenborough, who we mentioned earlier. He's a very famous British biologist. He narrates all those documentaries from BBC. We actually done one with them about jaguar rewilding and so forth, that he says something like, if we're happy that our grandchildren will only see elephants in a picture book. And I think it's a very powerful statement, because unfortunately it doesn't work just for elephants. If you get jaguars or many other animals in the world, if things don't change, that's unfortunately how it's going to be. And would be very sad to for our generation to carry this responsibility and tell our grandkids or whatever that somehow we were responsible for the disappearance of lots of different species. So again, I always have this thing that can't just say things, you have to do it. So I felt compelled to, try to help.
Wow. Thank you. I'm glad you did. I'm glad you have, and I'm glad you continue to do it. Let's see. I always ask people at the very end of every episode, who do they think could be a potential guest on this podcast? Who do you think could be a potential guest in the future?
I think if you don't have yet, you're gonna have a lot of followers soon. I think it's a great format that you've created here to to share stories of people and in a nice way. So again, I'm grateful to be here and be part of your show. I know it's a high ask, but maybe even David Attenborough, one of these guys, would be willing to talk to you and share their stories because they've lived through all these problems that I mentioned for much longer than I have, and they have a lot of great stories that could be told. And I had the pleasure to listen to some of his or Jane Goodall, for instance, stories that are very, very, very inspiring. That could be great for lots of people to listen to.
Thank you. And I hope that anyone listening out there really pays attention. In a spiritual sense, we always talk about paying attention to the still small voice. And I can imagine that all these people that you're naming with, they have an ability to really hone in into that voice, to tune in into that voice, to be present with that voice. And I'm thankful that our conversation has created an opportunity for us to bring light to that. And I hope it inspires other people, whether you're young, an adult, that this conversation has opened up an awareness to the relationship that we have with each other. And we talked earlier about our shared humanity, right? But that shared humanity comes with the responsibility of really taking care of this beautiful environment that we're a part of. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time. I think it has been a phenomenal conversation. And as you mentioned earlier, guys, if you want to learn more about Onçafari, please go to onçafari.com. That is ONCAFARI, onçafari.com.
It's .org actually, but
.org. Okay, .org. Onçafari.org. ONCAFARI.org. Mario, thank you so much. Blessings to you. For our listeners out there, this has been another episode of JourneyTalks podcast, your favorite podcast to reconnect with gratitude and inspiration. We look forward to seeing you next time. Hey guys, thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. Share your feedback, hit that notification bell, and let's keep the conversation going.